Dave, who runs the Facebook page for the Leicestershire Industrial History Society, the LIHS, said to me, "You want to jump on the walking tour that's coming?" I was like, "Do I? Of course I bloody do!" And we're going to walk right in, further into the tunnel. Come on in, and we'll get you out of danger of any twigs falling on your head.
Just do a bit of health and safety before we start. So the tunnel's not like this all the way through. It's a bit uneven in places. It's okay though, it's walkable. Just be careful where you walk. Bit of water, bit of gravel. There are some concrete rings around the periphery that were put there to support the tunnel a few years ago. So just be careful of those, they're quite sharp. So just don't rub against them with your clothes or your hands. If anybody doesn't feel well while we're in here, just say so and the guy at the back will take you out. It's not a problem. So we'll start. So there are some pictures here. The whole reason this tunnel is here was to get the coal from northwest Leicestershire into the city centre, because the cost of transporting coal across the hillside was very expensive, and it was very slow because they had to use pack horses. So these two gentlemen, William Stenson and John Ellis, got together and they contacted George Stephenson, who's obviously very famous and was so at the time as well, in 1829, and said, "Could you actually build one of these newfangled tunnels that you've built elsewhere in the country, and one of these newfangled railways?" Because up until that point there wasn't many railways in this country. So these were both Quakers, so they got together up in Newcastle. He came down to look at the tunnel where he was going to put it. He brought his son in, Robert Stephenson, who's equally as famous, and he actually managed he was engineer in charge of the tunnel. So this is the guy that actually ran the operation. So they employed various contracting companies and brought lots of navvies in. They designed it, the Stephensons, and this is what you see today. If you look at the tunnel, it's actually an egg shape. So the tunnel actually goes under the floor as well and back round. So it's a complete circle. So this is actually a canal tunnel, and that was the only tunnel they were building in 1830. That was the technology of the time. So this was all new. Railways were new, railway tunnels were new. So it's all basically make it up as you go along. We'll go a bit further and I'll explain to you as we go. This is our miniature railway, which we put here this year. This is to celebrate the Stockton and Darlington 200th anniversary. It isn't damp at all, it's not water. It's actually minerals leaching out of the strata behind the bricks. So when they decided to build this tunnel, they put boreholes down. That's what they said anyway. And they thought it was going to be solid rock when they got here. When they actually started doing the tunnel, they found out it was running sand, which is the worst nightmare you can have for doing tunnels, because it just keeps running. So what they had to do was line the tunnel with bricks. In 1830, you couldn't just go down the road and buy a load of bricks. There wasn't a B&Q in those days. So what they had to do was build a brickworks in Glenfield. They found a clay hole and they made the bricks themselves. So they lined the tunnel with bricks from end to end. So the tunnel is 1,796 yards long. So it's just over a mile. And it took between 4 and 5 million bricks to line the tunnel. And they were making about 120,000 bricks a week, and they couldn't keep up with the navvies who were laying them. So this tunnel was completed in 11 months, a mile long, done by hand. No machines, all done by hand, with picks and shovels and wheelbarrows. So this is the first ventilation shaft. So this is very narrow. Yeah. So this would have been to take out the smoke and the steam from the tunnel. As I'll tell you, it wasn't very effective. Very narrow. In fact, we don't think this was done by navvies at all. We think it was made by children. And I'm not joking when I say that, because 200 years ago children worked in industry like this, just like they did down coal mines. There's no way a heaving navvy would fit in that. So I'm going to show you this refuge hole. Now, if you're working in tunnels and there's any sort of vehicles coming through, you need to be able to get out of the way of them. And this tunnel is so small that even the original engine filled the tunnel. So if you were in this tunnel working, say you were doing the rails, doing a bit of maintenance, and you knew the train was coming, you needed to get out of the way of it, so they would go into this refuge hole. And this is the same in any sort of tunnel. I worked in mining for 20 years, so we had to be able to get out of the way occasionally as the vehicles came past. Weren't steam engines either, but the more modern engines actually passed about this far from the wall. So we're talking about that far from the wall, either side. So if you weren't in there, you got nowhere to go. And unfortunately, a little girl got caught out once in this tunnel. She got rolled by the engine as he went past, and she got badly injured. She was crippled for life, effectively. And there are other people that were killed in the tunnel who shouldn't have been in here either. There are reports of that. So the carriages were almost as wide as the tunnel and the engine. The result was that they had to put bars on the windows of the carriages to stop people poking their heads out for obvious reasons. And they also had windows in them as well, which were mainly shut because this tunnel was dreadful. We have reports from the engine drivers who drove the engines that said it was so bad that they kept a bucket of water on the footplate with rags soaking in it. When they entered the tunnel, they put the rags over their faces and lay on the footplate out of the way. And it took them 15 minutes to get through the tunnel, so they could only do 4 miles an hour. And I'll show you shortly the reason for that, because they used to rock from side to side the faster they went. So this tunnel would have been a dreadful place to be in. And I don't think the ventilation made much difference, to be brutally honest. Most canal tunnels nowadays have fans installed in the shafts, basically to take the fumes away from the diesel engines. And you can imagine what it must have been like in here, with a full-blown steam engine belching away. When I told you that the engine was limited to 4 miles an hour, so it took 15 minutes to go through the tunnel, the reason was because the train would rock side to side. Most trains do that, they oscillate, it's the springs. And we think what happened here, that the train actually hit the wall. And this is not the only place, you'll see another one of these a bit further on. So it's completely different brickwork. You can see which blue brick, whereas the original bricks from Glenfield were actually red. It was egg-shaped. Well, it looks as if something sat on the egg at this point, because it's flat, the roof. And the engineers who put these rings in obviously thought this was a point that was dangerous. We've actually got a report on this from 1840, so that's 8 years after the tunnel opened, and it's mentioned there. So we think this was probably the navvies having a bad day when they put the brickwork in. So the way we think they did the brickwork, they dropped the construction shafts down, and we'll see one of those in a few minutes, and they worked out from the bottom and joined them up. So this was a miracle of engineering at the time, and as I said, this was cutting-edge engineering for 1830. They'd only just started doing railways, and they'd been doing canal tunnels for a while, but most canal tunnels weren't brick-lined, they were mainly through rock, which presents its own problems, of course, with gunpowder. But this isn't what they expected, so all this was just unexpected new work that they had to do. So things weren't much different 200 years ago to how they are nowadays. What they did, they actually sank these shafts, and they put like a winding engine above, which is called a gin, and they actually used that to get the materials in and out, including the navvies as well. So they would have had to go up and down in a bucket. So a big bucket called a kibble, or a hoppet. We can't take you that far, we're only allowed to take you this far. So this is what the council licenses to do. It's 400 metres. So we talk about the navvies, an interesting bunch of guys. So this is basically a sign, it tells the passengers on the railway how far they've come. So in 1832, when you took a railway trip, and I couldn't quite believe this until I read it actually in a book recently. If you wanted to buy a ticket to go on the railway in this country, and this is the Stockton and Darlington and the Liverpool-Manchester, you had to tell them a day before you wanted the ticket, and you had to tell them your name and address, date of birth, and then you booked your ticket for the next day. And that didn't last very long, obviously, because they couldn't manage that. So this is telling us we are 3.5 miles from Desford, right? So we're 1/4 mile into the tunnel here. So when you go out of the tunnel, you'll actually see another one of these. It's a triangular one that sticks up out of the floor, and that will tell you it's 3.25 miles from Desford, because this is 1/4 mile from the entrance. So all roads lead to Desford in here. So this was the Leicester and Swannington Railway. So the Swannington incline actually brought the coal up from Swannington and and put it on the railway line, and then it came here, this past Whitwick, Desford, Bagworth, all the collieries on the way. And this was all to bring coal into the city. But like most of the railways that were built around this time in this country, they were all basically paid for on the back of coal, because coal was king in those days. That's where the money was. But nearly all of them became passenger railways almost straight away. And what the owners realised was there was much more money to be made out of transporting people than there was transporting coal. So the passenger industry took off. So what you've got here in this tunnel in 1832 is one of the first passenger railways in the country. And this was the longest steam passenger railway tunnel in the world when it opened, about 1 mile long, just over a mile long. So this is a world's first, and this was leading technology at the time. And they didn't really know how to operate railways in 1830. They'd only been at it for a few years. And that railway down there is almost 100 years since the last one ran in this tunnel. So passenger railway stopped in 1928 in this tunnel, and now 1925, so almost 100 years. So when you hear the trains clattering up and down on that railway, that's not been heard for a long, long time. And the reason we put that there, as I said, is because of the 200th anniversary of Stockton and Darlington. This is called Rail 200 this year, so there's been lots of celebrations around it. My colleagues down there are all train nutters, so if you want to talk about trains, they're the guys to talk to. I'm not one of them, honest at all. But we thought it'd be an interesting thing to do this year. We're staggered at how popular it's become. We really are. We thought, oh, people will like this. We didn't expect to have 1,300 people over 3 weekends. And I don't know, I think this month, and we've opened up as well in October as well. And it's just been overrun with people, you know, and everybody loves it. It's great, isn't it? So I hope you've enjoyed it. Yeah. And thanks for coming.
There we go. The tour of Glenfield Tunnel is complete. I hope you found that as interesting and as awesome as I have done. It's been mind-blowing in terms of how it was constructed. I think that's the thing that really has struck a chord with me. Dave is fantastic, really knows his stuff about this tunnel and about a load of other things in Leicester as well, which I guess why he's involved with the old heritage, the History Society as well, the Industrial History Society, and that is really close to my heart. That's the sort of stuff that I love, all the canal networks and the old history around the industrial side of our great city. So thanks very much for watching. There's more to come. At some point, I would love to follow the tunnel all the way in to the city overground and show you exactly how it runs, but that's probably a full day, so we need a bit more time for that. Thanks again. We'll catch up soon.